Welcome back to the Carbon Box Media YouTube channel. Today we are here again with Franthoni, and the topic we will be discussing today is Google Ads versus Facebook Ads. Which one do you start with? Which one's better? Everything in between. So, Franthoni, thanks for joining, man.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. So, for those of you that don't know, Franthoni, just give a quick background about yourself, and then we'll just jump into the topic.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the head of Google Ads here at Combox Media. I've been running Google Ads for about 5 years. We've scaled, I've contributed to scaling clients like Beiju, Monty Coolers, Vampire Freaks, and pretty much the whole stack. And yeah, our main specialty is e-commerce ads. And yeah, that's where we excel. Google Shopping, Google Merchant Center. So those are really the topics that I nerd out on.
Awesome, man. Okay, cool. Let's jump into the topic. This is going to trigger some people. I know some people are Meta ads, some people are Google ads.
Yeah.
What is your take, man? What do you think?
I would say it depends, right? Like that's
Okay.
that's a vague answer, and then I'll dive into that. It
Hmm.
depends on two things. The first thing is the type of product you have,
Hmm.
and then whether that product is whether there's already existing demand for that product, or whether you need to create demand for that product, right? So that those are like the first thing. So if you have a product that's already in demand, where you're selling a product that you're solving a problem for, or you're providing a solution to a problem, then go to Google. If you have a product where you want to bet more on like impulse buys and just catching people's attention, go to Meta, right? Because the
Hmm.
key differences at a high level with the platforms is that Meta creates demand, right? So when you're paying Meta to get in front of as many people as possible for the price that Meta is going to sell you that traffic for, and then in Google, the nature of the platform, it's capturing demand, right? So people who are
Hmm.
actively searching and researching about a specific problem or a specific solution, right? And then that's where you need to decide on which category your brand falls in. Like that, those are already like I would say the prerequisites before even deciding on Google versus Meta.
That makes perfect sense. What are some examples of some products that maybe would fall into the category of there's already demand for it, people are already actively searching that problem? Like what's like a product example?
So first one that comes to mind is, for Meta is like fast fashion, right? So
Hmm.
anything, fashion related, clothing, that those type of brands usually strive on Google, on Meta, excuse me. And then for Google, one idea top of mind is like a 3D printer,
Mm.
right? Like that's a product where people that use 3D printers are typically well versed in the topic. They know what they're searching for, they know what they're buying, and those products do well on Google, right? Because when you're searching, you're gonna type 3D printer, specific, you're trying to find out what model you
Hmm.
want to buy, and that's where Google helps you out with like the shopping ads, and you see all these different product listings.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So it kind of really depends on what bucket you're fitting into. Let's talk about the 3D printer example. Is that something you think that could also win on Meta, or is it seriously just like one of those things where you're either one or the other?
I think at scale, you do need both platforms in your
Hmm.
media mix, and then it's deciding, which one is going to drive the most traffic. I believe a 3D printer could do well on Meta, maybe with some retargeting,
Hmm.
potentially some prospecting, but ultimately, due to the nature of the product and the user that's searching for that product, it's you would naturally lean towards Google because again, right, you're solving you're providing a specific solution to a problem, right? So it
Hmm.
could do well on Meta, right? But if I had to give a recommendation, I would say don't start on Meta because again, what you're doing on Meta is giving Meta a piece of content and telling them, hey, I want you to show this piece of content to as many people as possible, and you're betting on the fact that the people that are going to see that content are going to your ad is either going to trigger the emotion to buy, or you're going to meet them at the stage where they're at, right, which is maybe the buying stage. Whereas on
Hmm.
Google, you're capturing demand for people who are already searching for a 3D printer, and you can actually see that data inside of Google through the keyword planner. You can actually see how many people are searching for a specific keyword in a given month, right? And that piece of data at the start, if you're just going off of data, it's way better to start off where you know people are searching for than trying to bet on, creative and creating, and then basically playing the meta game, like new creatives
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay. On this topic specifically, what else is valuable to share? I mean, if you want to talk more about like a winning strategy on Google, you're more than welcome to do that. I kind of want to give you the floor to take this wherever you want to.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to put out there that it's not black and white. Like I mentioned, at scale, you are going to need both platforms. So I can give, specific cases where, both platforms excel together. Let's say you're in a niche that you need to create a lot of demand, and your media mix is a 2-to-1, meaning that you're going to be spending more on Meta than you are on Google. And then in that case, what's your strategy? What one strategy that we've applied here at Complex Media that, helped us, scale a brand like Beiju is when you're calculating your total your total return on ad spend combined with both platforms.
Hmm.
Google, due to the nature of the platform that it's more stable, you usually have a higher return on ad spend than on Meta, right? But it's because Meta is doing the heavy lifting of bringing in that traffic, right? So when you're spending more on Meta, on Google, you want to make sure that you have a solid brand campaign and backed up, just so you can capture anyone that's searching for your company. And then also one thing that we've seen with specifically Performance Max is that it tends to go and target those users that are coming from Meta as well, right? So
Hmm.
that sometimes is a good thing, right? If that's part of the strategy, if you want Google to be that demand capture only and let Meta just push out of the top of the funnel, what that will mean is that Meta will potentially operate at like a 1.5, right? 1.5, a low return, and then Google will have a high return. If you want to scale now, it's important to start to build specific acquisition campaigns, on Google to just build only off of the Google traffic that you're going to want to capture, right? So it's in two different phases. It's in two
Hmm.
phases, right? First phase is we set up Google as that backup engine. That's usually what a lot of brands do. And then the second phase, and this is usually where we come in when we audit brands and when we work with new clients, it's we come in that second phase, right? It's like, okay, you guys basically have been undervaluing Google. Let's come in and actually show you the potential that Google has. And then the second option is when Google is the highest spending platform. And then now basically Google is doing all of the heavy lifting, capturing a lot of demand. So then here you want to have a lot of search, shopping, you want to potentially have some demand gen campaigns as well. Demand gen is specifically for videos. And Meta is gonna be the one that's gonna do that retargeting, right? Because maybe these users need multiple touch points, right? So what this usually looks like is they're gonna search for the specific product on Google. Maybe you're going to come up, your ad is going to trigger them. They're going to go on your ad, do some research, right? Usually a user needs 7 to 8 point of contact before converting. Then they're going to hop on their Instagram. They're going to see your ad, right? So that's where Meta really comes in to like remind them about you, right? So that's when you're spending more on Google than Meta, right? So it's important to take that into account in regards to media mix, where do I want to spend, and when you're spending more on a specific platform and the supporting platform is getting a low return, it's important to understand what that actually means, right? um
Yeah. Yeah. I think my takeaway from listening to you talk right now is that it's really important to understand the marketing environment that your company needs to win, because it's not necessarily a one size fits all. And also too, it's like depending on what stage you're at, it really just depends on what you need. Sometimes maybe you're early on and you should just be using Google to just get off the ground, or maybe you're ramping and you need to start dipping your toes into both, or maybe like you're already in both and you really need to hit the gas and scale like crazy. So it's a real it's that's why people hire us. Bottom line is
yeah,
because we've done this so many times, and it can be confusing, it can be challenging, so it's that's what we're here for.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, just to give the type of cases that we usually meet when auditing brands is like they're already spending 10K on Meta. Meta's doing well, but now they want to create a second acquisition channel, right? And that's where we come in. We build Google from the ground up, and we help them scale and create basically a new stream of revenue, right? Capturing
Hmm.
existing audience. Then you have brands that are doing both, right? But the same pattern. What I often have seen in the 5 years I've been auditing brands is it's usually the same pattern. For some reason, Meta is where most people tend to go towards because it's easier to understand. It's creative based. It's less technical, right? So
Hmm.
even founders, when you talk to them about like founders who have been in business for 3 to 4 years, running ads on both platforms, like, hey, do you really understand Google? And I'm like, no, I just kind of understand high level. It always surprises me, right? Because it's like, hey,
Hmm.
this is a great channel. So those are like that's the second type. It's they're doing both. They're doing both. Meta is still doing better, but they feel like they could get more out of Google, or they usually don't understand what's going on. And then
Got it.
the third one is really my preferred one as well. Is they're all in on Google, and now they understand, right? Those are the type of clients that I nerd out with, and I'm like, okay, let's test this, and we're having that conversation because yeah, they're just as invested as I am. So those are really the
Yeah.
three specific cases, and obviously we have all types, and we excel in all types. But my personal preference is the ones that are already invested in Google due to just the conversations being more intriguing and yeah, just you're doing a mental sparring with the client because they're asking a
Yeah.
lot of questions. They're really invested.
That's awesome, man. No, I love that. Okay, man, this is a fun discussion. Do you have any closing thoughts, anything you want to say before we sign off here?
If you feel like you're not getting the most out of your Google Ads account, hit us up. We'll give you an audit and help you unlock, the opportunities that you're missing out on.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hit us up. As Franthoni said, as we do audits, one of our biggest things that we focus on here is like if we're going to work with somebody, we want to make sure that we can actually help them. So those audits are so key. And we audit all across all channels. So if you need help with the Google Ads, Meta, email marketing, CRO, SEO, if you want to rank in LLMs, we can do it all, and we do it all very well. So thank you for watching. If you found this video valuable, hit subscribe, like it. We'd love to see you watching future videos. And yeah, thank you for your time. Take care.
All right.